Black Enterprises series on all things financial wellness. This particular edition is brought to you by our friends at Prudential, and we have a great guest on to talk about the things you could be doing on a daily basis to achieve financial wellness, to regain financial wellness, as we're all navigating through the current pandemic and all the things that are going on around us that's impacting the nation, families, and individuals. But our goal is to give you some things you could be doing on a daily basis to establish or reestablish your financial wellness as we go through this period. And we got a great guest, Ryan C. Mack, president of Untitled Capital Management, and he's the author of, I think, his fifth book that he just released, Provisions for Abundance, which is literally a day-by-day guide to things you could be doing, things you should be doing that could really help establish your financial wellness or reestablish your financial wellness as you navigate the challenges that we're going through right now. Ryan, man, welcome to Your Money, Your Life. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you, my friend, for having me on, and thank you for the work you've been doing to get this message out to the people. The people need it more and more every single day.
So before we get started, let's update the audience about what you've been doing. You're not new to the Black Enterprise audience. You used to be a regular guest on our All World with Black Enterprise TV shows and Black Enterprise Business Report. You were a regular financial contributor and expert that we quoted in the magazine. You've been in this game for a minute, as a financial evangelist, as an educator, financial literacy in the criminal justice system, in the prison system. You've been doing this for both high-level, high-income individuals, as well as people who are, struggling to, reestablish themselves in our society. But talk about what you're doing right now, in addition to the book and the other things that you're doing.
Well, right now, I mean, you're right, and I've definitely been. Black Enterprise has been my family for about a decade now, over a decade.
Over a decade.
When first time I was in there, but so I appreciate the family Black Enterprise, man. Y'all have been second to none as far as I'm concerned, and just making sure that the message gets out there to the people at large, whether it be underserved individuals who are wealthy. Y'all have been on top. But what I've been doing really now is through the educational process, and I did the financial planning route. I shifted to not financial planning, but more financial education through my nonprofit. I had a nonprofit, and then I did the work with Operation Hope for a while with one of my mentors, John Bryant. And then I realized that I really wanted to do something that was really take it to another level, to figure out how we could, and this is really a God-led type of a vision that God said, I want you to scale this where you can take what you're doing. Because I was getting frustrated. I would go to the prisons and teach. I would teach for those who were returning citizens. I would teach for those who are youth aging out of foster care. I would teach for those who are homeless. And I get letters all the time saying, hey, Ryan, I need some assistance. And I realized that I hadn't really put together an effective system that could continue. I mean, no matter what city I was in, Chicago or Atlanta or DC or wherever, when they reached out to me, there was no effective system. As a business, you have to create a system that could actually help individuals to follow up. And I was getting frustrated over the years of teaching without effective follow through, where it's great that you can get that initial point of engagement. I think that the overall model of the financial education industry has been that. It's really been about, okay, we'll teach you every 3 months or do a workshop with 30 people in the room, 100 people, 1,000 people, whoever it may be. But then after that 8 weeks is done through that session, you just have to just pray and hope that the people actually did something, and there's no follow through. And what I realized is that if we're really going to move the needle, the $320 billion industry that's in the room, the elephant that's in the room, that's payday loans, check cash and cash advances, title loans, refund anticipation loans, prepaid debit cards. They essentially are preying upon what individuals don't know, and they've effectively integrated into our communities, every corner. And then that, not including the $70 billion lotto system, where individuals now have more faith and luck than what God has put on inside of them to be successful. What they've done, and looking at their business model, which is integrating into the communities, where every single day, walking down the street, whether you're in rural America, urban America, you see the check cash and you see the payday loans. You can't go to the liquor store without seeing prepaid debit cards. These are the items that have integrated our communities, where it's a daily educational process. So in order to effectively compete against that, we also have to take these principles on a day-to-day basis, and through the use of technology, to integrate them on a regular basis into our communities. And then I realized one of the most effective ways is to do it through the church. Another of the most effective ways is obviously the use of technology. And then another effective way is to get a grassroots support mechanism that can have an effective handoff, that when you engage the people, you can then effectively hand off the educational and hand them off to those that can give them ongoing educational process. We've got that. And so that's what we effectively have created now is basically a system where we're recruiting churches every week, every day. Pretty much my job is recruiting different churches. I've got multiple contracts, one with ARP Foundation, another one with 1199 SEIU, where I'm teaching. 1199 has about 440,000 people in their membership, and we're getting additional members to join on board, additional unions. Once we educate the members and put them through this course, then we can refer them through the network that we have, like a Spring 4 network that has over 18,000 nonprofits that have all been vetted. Local grassroots nonprofits that all are funded that provide ongoing free financial literacy and education. So now, if somebody emails me, every Sunday I do a class for the Black Business School with Boyce Watkins. Every Wednesday I do a class with ARP Foundation. Saturdays I do classes with 1199 SEIU. I'm expanding the base of different unions for that. And then when people want that one-on-one ongoing help, I then can, based on their zip code, refer them to a nonprofit, a list of nonprofits that service those individuals so they can get free help on an ongoing basis. And so I get paid by the 1199s, by the ARPs, by those individuals who have groups of folks that want me to educate their folks. So the people that come to me don't have to pay a dime. All they have to do is just get educated, just sit through a course, get educated, so then I can refer them to individuals on an ongoing basis. So really, my whole job now is how do we build an effective network of various individuals that can just come to get this education and convince them to then sign up at one of the local nonprofits that have been vetted to get that ongoing one-on-one counseling, which we know is the most effective way to learn something. I mean, I love one of my mentors, Dave Ramsey, great guy. I think that Dave Ramsey, I mean, folks, a lot of churches use his course. I think it's great, but the deficiency in that is the same as in a lot of courses. What's the follow-up? What's the follow-through? That when the people get done with that 8 weeks, how can they continue to get that learned to integrate this financial education into their day-to-day basis? And that's where the basis of the book came from, is I want to create habits. I want to do workshops, and I love doing workshops, and I'm more interested in creating a habit so we can integrate it into the lives and compete against that $320 billion elephant that has effectively taken over our communities and exploited the ignorance in our communities of what we don't know. We can fill that with education and empowerment on an ongoing basis. So that's pretty much what I do every day.
You know, you're talking, you're speaking about, like you said, Black enterprise, and we've been working at that same vineyard. And you're right. How do you get people from getting the information to integrating that information, that inspiration into the daily day-to-day decisions that they make in their lives? And what you're talking about, which is, apropos the current environment, is how do you affect systemic change?
Yeah.
How do you build a system so that it's not just about what happened today, but it's integrated so that there's systemic change? And you're right, you can't have systemic change without scale. You can't have systemic change without building a kind of a chain of partnerships. So the person might get excited because they went to a webinar, or they might get excited because they listened to this show.
Right.
They might get a book, but then, like you said, what happens from there? How does that not just turn into? I'm into fitness, and I talk about the people who have gone to every conference or but they haven't changed anything in their day-to-day life because they don't know how to integrate it. So talk to me. I want to get right into some of the things, the habits, if you will, that I'm going to call financial wellness habits that you share in Provisions for Abundance.
Yeah.
Again, it's literally, guys, every day, 365 days of here's something you should integrate into what you're doing.
Right.
It's really set up, and I really like the way it's set up in a way that's easy to digest, because the other thing, the financial services industry, their strength, obviously, is they have tons of resources
Yeah.
They have tons of expertise. We have, financial planners and others on our show. Their weakness is they often aren't good at breaking it down in such a way that it's easily digestible for the average person. And of course, many in our community are intimidated and overwhelmed, and then they won't even want to get the help. And your book is an example of kind of a bridge that says, here's a way to get to these resources and expertise, but on an on-ramp that you can digest and not be intimidated by.
Right.
But talk about some of the specific things that you talk about in your book in terms of habits, choices, particularly in this current environment.
Well, again, the book came because God wanted me to do something that, again, wanted to not only make people feel good, but change good. It's great to give a good speech, and I've been known to give a pretty good speech at times and get people all riled up, but it really was leaving me void, because I said, yeah, I got the people standing up, but are they going to change? So the book came from really God saying you need to do something 365 days to do it for an entire year of one, it's scripture based, reading scripture, but then relating that scripture, because faith without not works is dead. So yes, you have faith, but what works are you putting in place to demonstrate how you exemplify your faith, right? So there are things we can do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that as we're digesting scripture, that we also have something small that relates to that scripture that you just read to put it into action. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This Wednesday, I'm doing a class on the godly mindset. How do we change our mindset? Writing down and reading various affirmations, putting down a vision board. The things that I'm doing now, the 1199, the ARP Foundation was once on a long-term vision board, right? That years ago, I said, these are the people that I want to go after. But had I not written them down on my vision board, and how good does it feel when you can cross out things on that vision board? That's something small that you can do, and write things on your vision board so you can see it. And every day I wake up, I look at these vision boards, and I have two of them. I have one vision board as a macro, the other one is micro. There's the small things that have to get done for that day and the week perhaps, and the big things I want to really just start working towards, and all the things that I know I'm trying to achieve. The book was a part of the macro vision board. So that's one affirmation, making sure we're never shopping hungry. I mean, now during COVID, that's a small thing that we're all going to the grocery store so much because we can't go out to eat as much as we would like to do. So I have multiple tips on don't shop while you're hungry. Use the bulletin board or the windows at the grocery store that advertise the sales to make sure you're saving money. Plan your week meals for the entire week and not just for the day. Right? Always use a list. Small things like that on a day-to-day basis in terms of how we're thinking, making sure that we're diversified. I mean, the word in Ecclesiastes, divide your portion in 7 and 8 for who knows what misfortune tomorrow brings. The word talks about diversification, and so that means using things like mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and then the word talks about financial counselors, and in the abundance of counselors there is victory in Proverbs. So we need to be reaching out to CFPs, and who are the best counselors? Certified financial planners, those individuals, and how do we ask them the right questions? How do we make sure we can get the right referrals, and making sure we go to FINRA and do our various background checks of those financial counselors that we're asking and talking to, so we can take the word and put it into a very practical purpose, and of how do we actually put that into practice. I mean, estate planning, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children. Well, how do we do that? We do that with a will, a living will, healthcare proxy, durable spring, and financial power of attorney. The word talks about in Kings about misfortune and preparing for your misfortune. How do we prepare for misfortune? What might come tomorrow? That's through insurance. Well, how do you get the right amount of insurance? Through the abundance of wisdom, there is victory. That's in Proverbs. So we research the various insurance companies to make sure that they're highly rated, reputable, and then we ask the right questions with those. So there's a litany of things that's in the Word of God that we can take through these day struggles. I mean, and that's another thing is really recognizing what many folks have had to remember is that you're not by yourself. there's a lot of things that we have felt in this time, especially, is that, but then when the isolation,
Yes.
I mean, man, seven of my friends have died. I've
Mhm.
had multiple friends and family who were very close to dying, close to dying, but I had to just keep reminding myself that God said that He was not going to leave me or forsake me, and He's with me now. So it's during these times that we really have to dig deep, because God has put something on the inside of us that allows us to strengthen us for times such as this. And if we can remember that God will never leave you nor forsake you, then recognize that the test really is just a bridge to a testimony, because those things that God put you inside of you prepared you for this moment. So on the other side of this, just like Second Kings, Elijah the Tishbite with the Tishbite with the widow. Every one of us is on a journey. And as we're on this journey, we don't recognize, and I'm sure that Elijah, I'm sure he knew he's on a journey, but did he know that he was going to come across a widow with a child who was dead that he would eventually breathe life into? What if Elijah would have quit that journey? What if he would have not gone through that journey, through famine, having to be fed by the raven, having to be, and then if he'd have stopped, he'd have never met the widow, and he'd have never met the widow's child. Our economic journey that we're on right now is exactly the same as what Elijah the Tishbite was going through, and making sure that we cannot quit, because on the other side of your blood, your sweat, your hard work and tears, there's someone waiting on you to breathe life into them. There's someone waiting on you with your own unique skill set, your own unique talents that only you have, that they're waiting on you to breathe into them by using the blessings that God has given to you. So quitting, and even in this environment, especially in this environment, is the epitome of selfishness. Not for only for what you need to do to overcome your isolation and maybe depression that many of us are facing in times of this, but there's someone waiting on you to bless them. So economically, we can't quit, because the stagnation that's going to come from our economy is going to come from individuals who feel that there's nothing left for them to fight for. And then that's when you'll see stagnation throughout all the economy. And the word speaks specifically against that. And the purpose of the book is make sure that we understand that there are things we can do to move us forward.
Now, this current book is specifically around faith-based Christian principles,
Right.
But often you are addressing people who have lost hope, who are people of different faiths, people who are not, your audience is often very secular, especially when you're doing things for AARP or the unions, et cetera.
Right.
Again, in this current environment, pandemic, struggle for social and racial justice, fighting for systemic change, and then the regular day-to-day stuff. Do I send my kids back to school in this environment, or do I educate them at home? What do I do with my elderly parents who are at risk? And but like you said, you go a long time, you maybe not even see your mother or your grandmother because it's not safe for you to even be in the same space with them.
Right.
Circle back again to both the mindset, but in that environment, for people who are not necessarily people of faith that you still have to educate, and then the financial habits that you communicate to them. And I really want to focus in on what people should be. You hit on a lot of them. Don't neglect your insurance. Don't put estate planning and long-term and estate planning and on the back burner. Be intentional about saving money and putting money to the side. Even in this environment, there are things that you can do.
Yeah.
But how do you approach that outside of the context of this particular book, for in terms of real hard financial decisions that people can make to bring hope to their lives?
I'll tell you right now, I'm finishing up one of the assignments I'm working on this week. As a matter of fact, it's here in New York. There's a group of it's 440,000 members in 1199 SCIU. In that, we have about 58,000 members that are home care workers. Home care workers, and we're putting together a curriculum specifically for home care workers. And the thing about home care workers is that there's different languages. There's Russian, there's Polish, there's Spanish, there's Haitian, there's Mandarin. And so I'm literally writing a curriculum that will be translated amongst all these different types of languages to try to ignite and educate this particular population. But for those who don't know, home care workers in the city of New York average between $20,000 and $30,000 a year salary. That's an
Mhm.
income. That's household income. It's not. That's a household income.
Wow.
How can you live in New York on a $20,000 to $30,000 income, which is very challenging? And so there are things that we're doing. The first thing that we do when I counsel these folks, and I also do individual coaching, so to speak. I don't give investment advice to them because I'm working with the union as a whole, and I didn't want to make sure any conflict of interest. I even signed a waiver to say I'm not going to give any investment advice.
Right.
But we do. We start off with the mindset and really trying to, again, my mother, and I think about my mother, who's the best financial expert on the planet to me, who brought me up raising two children on a $12,000, $13,000 salary a year, you know, where she would window shop at the highfalutin stores just to figure out what they were buying and what they were wearing. And then she would go back to her part of town, Post Side, and buy the same things in the window at the thrift store for $5 and $10 an outfit. Because the mindset that she had was that I know that I might not be where I want to be today, but I know I have to get prepared for where I'm going tomorrow. There's still another day coming for me. And that is making that, she taught me about contentment, and which is what we also deal with a lot with those who are home care workers and those who are in situations like my mother. And contentment does not mean that I'm happy with my state. It means I'm happy in my state. I can still find joy. Well, how can you smile? Because I can smile today because I know tomorrow a better, brighter day is coming, because I have hope that it will come for me. And that first part of the curriculum deals with that mindset, deals with understanding that there's a level of things in terms of changing our mind, because I can't teach someone about a budget if they don't believe a budget's going to work.
Well, just to interject, I want to hit this important word of hope, because it's a key to financial wellness.
Absolutely.
If you don't have hope, you won't even prepare.
It won't even begin.
Right. You won't even get started. So you're right. That mindset of hope is a prerequisite to reading that book, learning those things, going to the webinar, going to the class, because you think there's no hope. Then what's the point?
And again, see, and I think faith can even be described. You can be agnostic and still have faith. You can be an atheist and still have faith. And the secular definition of faith, I have my own definition, but the secular definition of faith to me is half belief tomorrow is going to come, a better and brighter day will come. Then the other half is acting on that belief. So, and we all have faith.
I think that's worth repeating, Ryan. Say that again. That was good.
The half of it is belief tomorrow and better, brighter day is going to come. The other half is acting on it. If you don't have those two components, you don't have faith. And everyone has faith. Again, atheists have faith. You got faith to put your initiative key in your car, it's going to start. You have faith when you get on that bus that it's not going to crash. You have faith. Everyone has faith in something. Do you have faith? If you don't have faith in God and you don't believe in it, that's fine. But do you have faith even in your own ability to be able to continue to work hard and get up and create change? And then what belief and what action are you putting in place to demonstrate that faith and whatever you derive it from? So the faith that we have to prepare and say, when we're going on a trip, when I did a mission trip to South Africa, I was living in New York. I didn't look at the weather in New York in August. I looked at the weather in South Africa. I packed my belongings for what I had to bring for South Africa, which was August, so it was colder in South Africa. I had to pack a jacket. People might look at me and say, Ryan, you're crazy. It's August. It's 90 degrees outside. Why are you putting a jacket on? They're questioning me if they were to see me packing, because they don't know where I'm going. They don't understand what my future has. I'm preparing for where I'm headed. I'm not preparing for where I'm at. And I believe that I was going to get there. I believe I was going to get to it. So I got to start bringing my jacket, my heavier clothes, that even though my current occupation does not merit that right now. Well, so those who are formerly returning citizens, youth aging out of foster care, these youth coming out of foster care that we work with, the home care workers we just talked about, they looking at their current situation. You might say, well, a lot of folks, why are you teaching these folks this stuff? Why are you teaching them about home ownership? Teaching them about putting together an IRA, teaching them about building their credit, teaching them about making sure that they can start their own business. Because in this time, home care workers have a skill set that many people need because some folks can't afford. They might not have the long-term care insurance. They might not have the ability to afford having someone in, but having a consultant to come in who's professional say, well, you might not be able to afford it, but you might be able to pay me a couple $100 and I can give you some pointers on how you can actually properly care for your adult.
Wow.
You know, so there's a business mindset. So preparing for that, you prepare for what you don't prepare for your current occupation, you prepare for your future destination. And that means that's a financial literacy and education perspective of putting together a budget. Once you get your mindset together, then you have to write it down on paper and really take an accurate accounting of exactly what you have. What does your financial statement say? Personal financial statement, your net worth sheet. What does it say? And I want the true fact. What is all your debt? I've done a lot of that lately, where individuals have written down those levels of debt, and once they see it, then we can start strategically attacking. I've helped, I don't know how many people this past few months, even just working with the home care workers and individual consultation. I'm working through the union. People saving $200 a month just on calling their interest rates and credit card companies. And they just said, look, you know, can we deduct this? And just last week, someone saved almost $1,000 in fees because I said, look, you got an essential worker here who then she left and to her demise, she left the Verizon thing in the house and they had to pay extra dollars for the equipment. So she got dinged for it. So I played the guilt card. I said, you got an essential worker here who's trying to get out of this debt. You're going to obviously pay for equipment that you eventually got back just because she was late on it. I mean, help her out. She got the money to pay for it. I mean, so we would saved over almost $800 in fees just because we negotiated, which a lot more companies are willing to do nowadays.
Yes, yes.
And so closed mouth don't get fed. So we got to really be aggressive at negotiating the interest rates on credit cards and a litany of other things. The daily practices, people not knowing where their money's going. The budget is almost like a leaky faucet. Kids spending money like crazy on their cell phones, on these games that you didn't even know they were spending because all these apps got dings and fees attached to them. People shopping like crazy. Packages coming every other day because now things on Amazon seem a whole lot more attractive. You got clutter building up on stuff that you haven't had before, but now you're spending $300-400 on things you didn't even need. It's a whole lot of things that we're discovering just in the lifestyle changes to really face it directly that cause a lot of the home care workers that we work with to say, I have a little bit more hope that we can actually do something to change this down the line. And now in the gig economy, especially, you got folks driving Ubers, freelance work getting paid, tutoring. You got people making t-shirts online that you can do cafepress.com to making t-shirts and selling them for, well, they'll take up the front cost. They'll take a huge chunk of the sales fee. But I mean, you might not make a ton of money, but you might be able to make a little bit of money, put some money in your pocket with no upfront cost because the gig has taken the majority of the upfront costs. They just take it out of it on the back end when you sell it. Right. So tons of things that we've been blessed with that we just have to learn how to utilize, especially in times just like this. And I think that on the other side of this, we're going to be a whole lot more stronger because of it.
You know, circle back to this theme of if you have to start out with a mindset of hopefulness.
Yeah.
Again, that there's no financial wellness without hopefulness. Because without the hopefulness, you won't prepare. You won't even look for the opportunities. You won't have the courage to look at your debts and really lay it out so you can figure out how to attack them. And I also want to underscore this theme about your hope causes you to prepare for where you want to be, not focused on where you are. And that's really important during this let's call it the age of COVID,
right?
Where whether you're a corporate executive, making $150,000 a year, but you're about to get furloughed, or whether you're an essential worker, or whether you're someone who literally has lost their job or their businesses has failed, really the more difficulty you're facing, the more hope you need to have so that you can face the issues and face the problem and prepare for, like you said, there will be a life, there will be some kind of post, quote unquote, COVID environment that you want to prepare for. But if you don't have any hope, you could reach that environment and be unprepared, even though the crisis is now over. But you are not prepared because you didn't have hope in the current space. And that's what you want. Again, one of the reasons I want to have you on this show and this book is rooted in a Christian faith-based framework. But the whole thing about faith is you just believing that there's a place you're going to be tomorrow, and you need to prepare for that place now.
Yeah.
And again, this book is there's a daily thing. But even if you go beyond this book, the goal is to take some actions now to prepare for this better tomorrow for yourself and your family and your future, which is what this show is really all about.
The room of hope and faith is the room where idealism and realism can coexist, right? That is the place where you'll see some people say, that's not realistic, or you're being too idealistic. Well, if you have that hope, the more hope you have, the more evident that you can take your ideal situation, and then I'm hoping for the benefit of others, they can take the top off their vision, take the top off their thinking, because God didn't create mediocre children. An awesome God does not create mediocre children. So, and it's also very important for us to be able to see beyond our current circumstances, because our current circumstances might cause us to cloud our perspective of what our potential is. We might have forgotten many of us have went into COVID thinking on 10, but then COVID has caused us to believe that we can only achieve 2. If you
what I've seen is some people in crisis, and it happens to all of us as human, we get paralyzed.
Yeah.
So we may have been practicing good habits, and then the crisis hits, and maybe we can't continue all of those good habits, but maybe most of them we can. But because of like you said, the sense of hopelessness and despair, we stop all of them. Because we feel paralyzed, and it's important to keep moving on everything you can move on. If you were contributing to your 401k, keep contributing to your 401k. If you can't save $100 a month, save $50 a month, but keep moving through it, and don't let despair and hopelessness cause you to literally shut down all of those habits that you may have had going into the crisis, and that will still serve you when you come out of the crisis.
I think one thing I've said to a lot of folks is that changing your plan doesn't necessarily mean you have to change your vision. There's a vision that you've had that you want to achieve, and you might have to, plans are going to change. I have never worked with a client in my life where we didn't have to change a plan or strategy in some form, whether it's something from rebalancing your portfolio all the way down to maybe saving a little bit less until we can get rid of some of this debt, or whether it's changing our shopping patterns or habits or whatever it may be, because life happens, things change. But when you have a strategy and a plan in place, okay, you then go, the reason that I tell folks to look at their budget, at least on a monthly basis, because from month to month, your budget might alter or change based upon your life situation. You didn't know that someone's going to get sick, and and what month is it now? And next month, you didn't know someone's going to fall ill. And maybe in November you have a big illness, but your budget didn't account for that. Okay, so now let's alter the budget. Alter the budget to figure out how much we're going to have to pay on these healthcare costs. Okay, what didn't you not have to? What did you not have health insurance, or what did you have? Whatever the situation is, there's a way to get out of it. Our goal, and even as coaching these individuals, is understanding that, 1, with the hope, 2, with the planning and the strategy, there's a way to get beyond it, but always keeping in mind that there's still somewhere where we're going. And sometimes it might have to say, all right, well, my original plan was to start taking early withdrawals of 62.5 on Social Security. I might got to push that back to full allotment of 65. Okay, that's fine. I might have to work for a couple of years. Or I might have to do for the full one. Now RMD is 72. Okay, I might have to wait till a couple extra years before I can hit that retirement parameter.
The flip side of that, Ryan, and I had this conversation with another guest on the show, and this goes back to your point of just analyzing your budget, looking at it on a regular basis.
Right.
The flip side is that something positive can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're not working with a plan, and I'm thinking about unexpected income. When you're not working with the plan, you'll spend that money before you realize you have it. And you go talk about the Amazon boxes showing up on your So even then, if you're looking at the plan, whether the unexpected occurrence is someone falling ill and maybe you lose some income, or it could be you got some freelance work that you didn't have in the budget before, But if you have a plan, then you can say, okay, this new money is coming in. Let's be intentional about where we apply it. Do we pay down some debt? Do we put together some build up our emergency savings? Do we But if you're not looking at your budget because you feel hopeless, going back to the necessary of having hope, then that money will come in. It'll get spent by you or others in the household, and you won't even realize the benefit of this positive thing that happened because you weren't hopeful enough to even plan and prepare what to do when that happens.
The stimulus, the first CARES Act, the stimulus went and gained, and it was sucked up. It was just gone. And I can't tell you, I don't even know the stats on what the savings rate. I would like to get that stats. Maybe Ariel or someone does an analysis. But most of the individuals that I talked to, when they got their stimulus checks, and this is before I was doing the one-on-one, they said, well, that went here or that went there, and it just got sucked up. And there was no strategy put in place to figure out exactly where was the most effective place to put that money. As little as it was, and it wasn't a lot, and it wasn't consistent. I wish that, and there are some, I just wish that there was a way, and to your point, that we could all get a level of education to assist us. And this is what my mission is that the next time we get that stimulus check, no matter where it comes from, I don't care if it comes from a lotto ticket, you hit the numbers, I don't care where it comes from. How do we allow ourselves to have a strategy to put in place so as soon as you get an extra dollar, you know where it goes? A lot of things what we've done lately, especially with the home care workers, is that zero-sum budgeting strategy, where you're effectively putting your entire check into savings. You've estimated what your checking account should have, and let's say you have a $3,000 a month expenses or $2,000 a month expenses that you've estimated, and you get a check for $3,000. That entire $3,000 goes into your savings, and then $2,000 of that goes from savings directly into your checking account. So throughout the month, you've known exactly what you're spending. So on day 30, your checking account has zero in it, knowing that your next check is going to come. You put the next $3,000, and then you put that. So you're forcing yourself every dollar is accounted for. And this works for a lot.
The flip side, if you put it all in checking up front, then you tend to spend everything that's in checking.
Gone.
It's just gone. I want to hit on something you just hit on. One of the things that I've been, pushing both on this show and on other shows, both for Black Enterprise and other shows and podcasts I've hosted, is this idea of budgeting for windfalls. And you just hit on it. And I would tell people, listen, there's money you get, all of us get, that we have no reason to know what's coming, whether it's an unexpected bonus, whether it's a gift from a relative, whether it's, in this case, it could be stimulus, and I call that windfalls. I said, but if you don't plan for your windfalls, you won't realize the benefit. And so people say, what do you do? I said, well, I call it found money. If I wasn't part of my paycheck, it wasn't some income that I was budgeting for, it's found money. 50% of all found money should be going towards your debt. 25% could go toward your emergency savings. Then if you got whatever's left, if you want to just play with it, at least you know that 70 to 80% of this money. In my case, if you're a faith-based or a Christian person, you might say, well, I'm going to make sure 10% is going to go toward a tithes and offering, and then I'll reward myself by just treating myself to something with the rest. It doesn't matter how you break it down. It's the idea again. And you don't do this unless you feel hopeful. Assume that there's some money that's going to come in that you didn't expect, just like there's going to be expenses that you didn't expect. And have a plan for what do you do when that happens, whether it's $5, $500, or $5,000.
And that's another thing is, have you written down your goals? Like, if you haven't written your goals down, you don't know what you're saving for. There is no finite point. And this is why it's very easy for a lot of individuals to save, to spend money rather, out of their checking account. The zero-sum budgeting strategy I've had to implement with many individuals because the money was just going way too fast. I said, we got to force it. We got to force this. And I realized that without your goals actually being written down and then putting a timeline on how long it's going to create those goals, there's a lot when you do that, and then you say, okay, you know, if you want this house and if you want to buy a house, I'll say based on this savings plan and your income, you'll be able to afford to buy a house. And with this down payment, let's say in 5 years from today or whatever. And that's assuming very moderate interest rate, you know, 1-2%, wherever you get that at. You know, 2% nowadays is really good. But so this is how long it's going to take to get there. All of a sudden, if you get any additional windfalls, you're going to say, well, if you get windfalls, you can cut that time frame down. You know, that gives you an additional incentive to really start needling down exactly what you're putting money in. And then another thing is that when you really write down your debt, and I'm just thinking about a conversation I just had last week where they hadn't written down their debt. Their Best Buy account was 25% interest rate.
Wow.
So they didn't, and again, I use the tool. One of the things I like to say is interest in versus interest out, which is one of the biggest wealth building factors, as you know, is interest out is things you're paying on your debt. Interest in is that you're earning on savings. Can you maximize interest in versus interest out? Because Best Buy is literally paying their employee retirement with your funding. Okay, so you're empowering their bottom line with this 25% debt. And so by seeing that, it caused her that when she did get a refund, one thing she got out of that Susu account, which doesn't account for the time. Look, I love the Susus. To me, demonstrate unity, community, family. It's great. The togetherness is an awesome concept. However, they're not FDIC insured. They have no interest rate. They don't account for any time value of money. It's too much a lack of accountability on really relying, and it's great that you rely on your folks, but you're really going to put your entire financial future on folks that you don't even know. And if two people withdraw, you got to hold on to that until two people jump in. It's just the biggest thing is taking that out, and you can actually earn money and do the exact same thing with instead of putting money in the suit, so you put money in your own interest-bearing account. So different things like that, and then seeing that 25% interest rate, that when she got that money back can go right back to that, where this week she's going to be putting that directly on that Best Buy, getting rid of that, and then that 25% now is gone that you're paying for Best Buy retirement. Now it's going to, you can earn, instead of paying 25%, you're earning 1.1% in savings. That's a 26% swing.
Yeah.
So that's interest in versus interest out. We've got to understand that debt is just a license to pretend. So we're pretending that we own these things, but we really don't own these things. We're paying other people's retirement plan. So how do we reverse that with putting it into our own savings? And interest rates are not high right now, but once you get up enough emergency fund, you put that, and I'm saying at least 9 to 12 months of living expenses now, because obviously with the liquidity being more of a priority than it once was with the fluctuating economy. But now then you can start going after the 6-7% return through the stock market and equities that you might get on a regular basis. And so these are the type of things that we're working with. And you can't do that unless you have written it down and putting together an effective strategy to deal with this effectively.
And it's important to understand. That's why I always love talking to you. That's why I don't circle back to you so much on different platforms. This is habits and strategies that you don't wait to quote unquote get rich through practice.
No.
You do it where you are, because the ultimate goal, and we're circling back to the beginning of this whole conversation, is to build a set of habits that you will maintain in COVID season, out of COVID season, good economy, bad economy, unemployed, overemployed, underemployed, that this becomes a way of life. And my biggest theme, if you will, and I host another show called Beyond the Hype, also for Black Enterprise, but the common thread in this post-COVID environment is that this adversity for both businesses, households, individuals, in many ways is forcing us to adopt some really good habits.
Right.
That we're doing it because it's an emergency, but I think you even touched on it a second ago, that what you want to do is maintain it when the emergency is over, because these are probably the kinds of habits we should be practicing anyway. And so a big thing that I'm hoping will come out of this, and again, I think you just touched on it, is these things that you're teaching are things that we should be doing anyway.
Yep.
Because wealth creation, whether it's for an individual, a household, a business, or a community, is a long-term game that has to ride out the ups and downs of the stock market, that has to ride the ups and downs of global and geopolitical events, that has to ride the ups and downs of life, whether that's marriage, divorce, death in the family, births in the family. And the goal, and again, is why I think your book is just a great addition to the library of people who want to practice financial wellness, is how do I build a lifestyle, even in this current environment in crisis, that I will continue to practice and build on when other changes take place, whether they're positive or negative.
And I've read, I heard a song, "The Trouble Don't Last Always."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This and those songs like that always motivate me to really recognize that there's an opportunity for us to have peace in the middle of a storm. The story, not to get too biblical, but when Jesus was sleeping on the boat and there was a storm,
Yes.
and the rest of the disciples were all nervous and freaking out. And Jesus said, "Don't you know who we serve? You know, don't you know who our Father is?" Right. So it's like I think about that as a motto for me of how can he just sleep in the middle of a storm? If you understand who you are and understand whose you are, it gives you that level of peace. And one of the ways of understanding who you are is a level of planning and preparation to put yourself in that position that despite your current situation, despite what's going on, you've put together a strategy and a plan that can assist you to give you peace, even in the middle of a storm. And that plan is going to be effective, whether it's a storm or whether either storm is going to come back on you again or whether you're over the storm completely. It's that level of peace that we all can achieve. And by just effective writing it down, claiming it to existence with hope and faith, and then even I encourage other individuals to help other individuals do the same. You'd be amazed on, especially in this economy, those things that you want the most, give to someone else, right? If you feel that you're isolated, there's ways, especially now with youth and many individuals, even virtually, who you can spend some time with, tutoring them, giving back. There's many food pantries that individuals now you can go put your mask on and go down and they're outside and handing out food for individuals and helping. Those things that you want the most, give to someone else. And that puts you in a position to feel good. And then when you really help those individuals who are underserved, it really puts things in proper perspective. And to be quite candid, it's one of the selfish reasons that I work with those individuals that are underserved. To be totally candid, is that sometimes, when you're working with someone who's homeless and they're just trying to get their life on the road, who are returning citizens, you realize that, you know what, Ryan, the problems that you think you have, it ain't all that bad, man. It ain't all that bad. You doing all right, man. And
No doubt, no doubt.
so
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's just that I think that those things you want out of life, you need to give.
I wanted to say two things, but I do want to end on this note. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but the other themes of your book is about gratitude and giving back, and you started touching on that. I like the end of that. But before we get to that, I really want to again emphasize this importance of planning, preparation, writing it down. And I'm speaking as someone who's passionate about mental wellness, passionate about mental health, someone who's been very open, honest about how I manage anxiety and challenges. And one of the lessons I've had to learn over the years is that the monster under the bed is always more scary than the monster you can see with your own eyes. Like, the monster in the closet, the monster under the bed, and I use that as a metaphor for you won't even look at it. You won't look at the deck. You won't even write it down. And in your head, it becomes much scarier because now it's your imagination that is defining the problem, as opposed to, and I've never had a situation where if I then looked at the real problem, and I'll use your metaphor, now let me just literally write down who I owe and how much and what the interest rate is. It's never as bad as I was imagining it when I was tossing and turning at night, wondering what was, and so this whole idea of managing anxiety, managing the stress that we're all under, that, in the current environment, but in general, because life happens, that the importance of having enough hope to say, you know what, it may be ugly, but let me look at it. Let me face it. And
Yeah.
it always, at least for me, results in me feeling less anxious because now, like, okay,
Yeah.
I can get my arms around this. Maybe I can't take care of 100% of this, but this little thing right here, I can knock that off.
Yeah.
Like I can knock off that Best Buy thing. Maybe I can't deal with all of it, but I can knock that off. And then you knock that off, well, maybe I can knock the next thing off. But if you never get to the point where you're actually willing to look at the problem, then it seems overwhelming. And then that's when you get paralyzed with anxiety.
I tell you, I call it the one thing. I remember when, to get very personal, I had an opportunity to work with the NBA and put together a contract, and it was an RFP, and I was the players. I mean, it was the best proposal in the world, man. I mean, we had Columbia University, Jaquette Timmons and other folks was I had all the best financial people, Glenda Bridgeforth and all those type folks we all had a team, Chris Emden, who was going to do the educational assessment, and we wowed them. This is when David Stern was there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Players Association chose our plan. They chose us. They said, this is who we want to go with, because we wowed them. It was just too good. It was way too good. It was everybody black. And it was just, it was powerful. But then David Stern said, well, nah, we don't think the organization is large enough. So they pretty much scrapped the entire RFP process because they couldn't agree on who they wanted to go with that was outside of us. And they ended up going with just PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I can't blame him, who wasn't even in the RFP process. I can't blame him for that because PwC, well, I mean, maybe I can. But it struck me. I mean, I just knew we had it, and everybody told us that we had it. I knew we had it, brother. I didn't get out of bed for almost about 4 weeks.
Wow.
I was down, and that was right before. Again, God had to move. God was moving to me, man. God was moving to me in every single direction. But I didn't get out of bed for almost 4 weeks. I got up just to shower. How hard to shower? I would eat, get back. I would watch. I mean, I was paralyzed with depression and anxiety. I was paralyzed, and it's the worst feeling in the world. You don't feel as if anything matters. You don't feel as if anything. And I have my little studio apartment in Brooklyn, and I'm just sitting there by myself every single day watching Steve Wilkos and Judge Judy and all the other programs that come on during the day that you're not supposed to have time to watch. And I was just paralyzed. I knew I had it. I put Optimum on the back burner because I put everything on, did everything I wasn't supposed to do. All eggs in one basket. Forget that. We going in hard. And I was paralyzed. And the only thing that got me out of it was that, it was God. It was and God worked through my mother. And she said, baby, just do one thing. Just do it. And she would call me. She's calling every day. And just do one thing. So I literally, after that 4th week of just staying there, I wrote down one thing I wanted to accomplish that next day, right? And that one thing might have been make a phone call. And as you know, as a business owner, if you ain't on that phone, you ain't creating nothing. If you're not creating any meetings, you don't have no buzz. Things come together when you start making calls and throwing out emails and all that stuff starts flowing. It was dead. It was dead in the water with me. And I said, I'm gonna make one phone call tomorrow. I didn't know it was going to be 2, but I wrote down one phone call, and I made a phone call to somebody. I said, the next day I said, okay, I want to send one phone call, one email. I remember one phone call, one email. Didn't even put down who it was going to go to. So, and then every day I would add one thing to the list. Then I would start maybe making a little bit more specific. One phone call to such and such, one email to such and such. And it took about another 2 weeks just before I finally had that list up to at least 10 specified items, SMART type goals. Then I started to just finally pull myself together. Things started to move a little bit. And that's when I started to generate enough activity. And next thing you know, I got a phone call from John Bryant, who said, hey man, I'm looking for somebody to go down to DC. But it was only because I was putting those types of things out there but I was paralyzed. And I'm thinking about all the folks, when you go through something like that, you remember how that feels. Mm-hmm. The fear that and courage is not having fear. Courage is dealing with fear. So it ain't, Bible says fear not, but you gonna have some fear. You deal with that fear. You go over that fear. You face that fear with God every single day. But the fear of going back to that moment, when you're going through this isolation with all the stuff, my business is doing better now than in my life with COVID because I have a virtual business. I've been very blessed because everything is about virtual. I do everything virtually, but that was before COVID even hit. So it was like set up for a time like this. So that's God moving. But even with that, I'm laying on that sofa, still remembering that time years back when I laid down, was just paralyzed. And I'm like, no family around, people dying. And I'm like, oh, no. So I'll go back, I'll just write it down, man. So I'm just telling folks, for those who understand going through something like that, write it down, man. Write it down. I don't care where you write it down. I don't care how small it is. Just do one thing. Just do that one thing. If that one thing is, some days the one thing was changing the roll of toilet paper and putting it in my bathroom, actual on the roll. That was one of the days, that was my one thing. Like I did something. Like it was that small. It was that, and it's mental. It's all mental. And if you can just do that, and I was literally happy that I put the toilet paper on the roll, So it just do one thing, just that one thing, and then you grow on it, expand on it, and that created that I went from here to there because of something because it was really a blessing to even be in that opportunity to do something that. Who gets an opportunity to be approved for an NBA proposal? If you look at it as a blessing, which eventually the program, look at God, the program that we put together for the NBA was eventually the same program that was adopted by ARP in 1199 NCI used that. Years later, after Operation Hope, I dusted it off and they said, wow, this is great. And it became the virtual program, which was the basis of my company. But had I not gotten through that moment, had I not done that Joseph type where, Joseph was trapped in a dungeon, but he still recognized the skills and talents that God gave him to be able to prophesy with dreams or interpret dreams. You got to remember your skills and talents and get through that dark period, always being able to see the light. And it's not easy. It ain't easy at times, but
that's powerful. Just get up and just do one thing.
One thing, man. Do it.
If that's all you can do.
Thing. Just do the one thing, please.
That's
just
really powerful. That's really powerful. So yeah, listen, but I did want to wrap up with, and again, the goal is, you're really, my mission for this show is always people need to leave feeling like financial wellness is within their reach and have some hope. And again, everything you shared in this conversation is right on point. But you again, we didn't spend a ton of time on it, and we won't. But you touched on this idea of gratitude and giving back, and I'll testify on this. I don't know what I was watching. I think I was watching something on CNN, and they were talking about food insecurity across the country. And like most Americans, I've taken financial hits. I've had hits to my income over this last 8 months. And, so there's a part of you that's like, I'm fortunately, I mean, obviously I have a plan. I've been in this space for a long time, just like you. And so again, I'm not suffering, but I've taken some hits. Yeah. So I'm watching this show on food insecurity, and you see how many Americans are really, people are getting on food lines and never did in their life before. And it moved me to think about, I should just give some money to the food banks here in New Jersey. So I went and got on my phone. Again, everything's virtual, got on my phone, and then first it was like, okay, let me just throw in $25. And then I was like, wait, I can do better than that. Makes a long story short, I ended up becoming a monthly contributor. I just set you're like, and logic says, why are you adding this quote unquote extra expense in this period of crisis when your income has been reduced? Yeah, that's what logic says. Yeah. But after I did it, I was like, man, this is good. And I'm spending money on other stuff. if I'm being honest, not everything I'm buying, every food is totally necessary. This monthly contribution, which is obviously going to help other people, it was a more than worthwhile investment.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, as we end this conversation or wrap up this conversation, to talk about why you included money management, a guide to money management, but then you said gratitude in giving back, that you gave that equal billing on your book, which is ultimately about abundance and provision, to giving back and having a sense of gratitude. So talk about why you did that and why that's important.
Think about it from a logical perspective. What does it say when someone comes to you and asks you for $1, and you grab a hold of that dollar as if it's the last dollar you'll ever create, right? This is the last dollar, and I can't give you any money. What does that say about the confidence in your earning potential? What does that say that if I give you this dollar, I won't be able to make another one? Okay. And first of all, money in and of itself, I don't consider to be a blessing. If you look out the window and you see the leaves and the trees moving, people will say that's the wind. Well, you can't see the wind. You just see leaves and trees moving. The wind is something you can't see. And you're seeing the evidence of the wind. You're seeing as the wind blows, you're seeing the result of what happens when the wind blows. When God blesses you on the inside, you don't see the blessing. So I believe money is a symptom of the blessing. And because if you don't have $1 to your name, you're still truly blessed. So as you use these things, these skills that are on the inside of you, the things you can't see, to create the dollar, you have to have confidence on those things that you have on the inside of you to create that. And when you give it, that's even further confidence to say that I know that I have the ability to create this and then some, because I'm thankful to, and from my perspective, I'm thankful to God of what the things he's given me. So freely I've received, freely I'm going to give, because I want to give and give thanks, because it makes you feel good. And even from a logical perspective, those who give, those who tithe, for you to do your monthly allotment, you first got to put a budget together, figure out exactly how much you can afford to give, right, or what impact it's going to have on you. And if many folks of the churches I work with, if they do tithe, you got to figure out what is 10%. You can't tithe 10% without first learning what 10% is. It's physically impossible. You can
back to planning and preparation.
Yeah, so you have to figure out what is 10%, or what is first fruits of offerings. What is that, and how much is that? So you have to plan it, to budget it. And those who tithe, they know where their dollars are going, so they're more effectively having an effective order, which it also talks about in the Word. And then you're affecting things in our communities, such as the church or other institutions of food pantries, or the thing that are actually blessing other individuals, which I encourage other folks to do. And that's what makes our community, because ultimately, I mean, to be secret, it ain't really a book about money. It's really a book about impacting change, and ongoing change, and using those tools that God has given you to create change for the betterment of us. Because the purpose of life is to make this world better. And we can't do that if we hold on to every single dollar only for self-interested purposes. So giving is a means of life that you need to first empower yourself to be a more effective giver. Madam C.J. Walker said, I want to be the first African-American millionaire, because the more money I make, the more people I can help. And as you're helping people, that to me is the key to life. And that's what we're all here for. But you can't put the mask on a baby without putting it on yourself first. And that's what financial planning. So financial planning is really all about empowering your own situation so you can more effectively give to empower others.
Rob, perfect note to end this conversation. You always deliver. So I'm so glad I could get you on the show. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being a guest on Your Money, Your Life.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yep, and you just listened to the latest edition of Your Money, Your Life. Again, this episode is sponsored by Prudential. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.